Nope. Still don't have a name for this show. Anyway, today we'll be looking at one of the more fitting crossovers. The Minoan labyrinth meets the horror genre. Yes, I know, according to the myth, the kids weren't lowered down into the labyrinth and then hunted down by the Minotaur, but rather offered as a sacrifice. There's also another 100 differences, so don't expect this to be a faithful adaptation. It's one of the oldest myths meeting the cliché teen horror genre. This is Minotaur. So we get some opening narration that says that Minos was a dark and evil empire. Stop, stop, stop! At the time they were around, Crete was one of the most advanced civilizations on the planet. And in a time of Egypt and Greece, were they really any worse than them? Well, okay, at least they get it right by saying that the bull was an important part of their mythology. And just like in the myth, the Minotaur came into being through bestiality, except without either magic or gods. Mind you, this is only the opening narration, and we're already in trouble. And then we cut to a village of Vikings. Okay, I know they're not supposed to be Vikings, but based on the climate and the looks of the people, we know that they're supposed to be much further north than they are. Then again, Christopher Lee played a Pakistani, so I suppose anything goes. Anyway, we find out that the village was blamed for the death of one of the princes of the empire, and must thus give away a certain number of their young every once in a while. However, our hero is the son of the leader of the village and will thus be hidden away so that he may one day become the leader. We also learn that they took his girlfriend the last time.
But not sacrificed. I never left you. Never.
We also establish some other characters, but they're so obviously there to die, so it's like remembering the victims Jason kills in the Friday the 13th series. He meets up with a random leprosy victim who provides him with some convenient motivations for the movie. So the Minoans finally come to claim the youths, and our hero Theo manages to get himself captured on purpose because he thinks his girlfriend is still alive. They travel to the palace of the Minoans and we are presented to this guy.
Let us first season his meat.
This villain, played by Tony Todd, is so well acted that he becomes the best character in the movie. And this is despite the fact that he spends the entire movie wanting to bang his sister and sacrifice people. Oh yeah, and you might have noticed something a bit odd. All of the heroes are very white and the villains are black. So yeah, this is both iffy and historically incorrect. Anyway, he waxes on about sacrificing them, and then he says he'll season them, which translates into them getting high and horny. Bill Mayer would approve. He then proceeds to talk with the Minotaur.
You think that you will displease our eyes? Come quickly, powerful one, before I taste this precious flesh myself.
It's a bit of a one-way conversation. Finally, the Minotaur shows up and causes some commotion. The guys get beat up and they're all taken away, after which the king says that they'll all be sacrificed together, and they're dragged away. He then chastises his sister for speaking in the throne room. Because evil. And then bitchy girl decides to be bitchy. Don't worry, she won't matter. And then preacher girl decides to proclaim that the Minotaur is a god.
And Theo should not also.
Take a guess who will be our first victim. We then see the princess telling a servant to fetch Theo, because the leprosy woman had told her that he would come. They fetch and drive Theo, so we get to see him dream about his girlfriend. She tries to seduce him, but he naturally isn't in the mood, and tries to strangle her because she's aligned with his enemy. She tells him that she can help him, but Carlion overhears and charges in with a retinue of soldiers. He proceeds to threaten his sister, and this is about the time where you realize that the lesser actor couldn't have pulled off this role without either becoming too unlikable or too over the top. They gather up the gang and prepare to sacrifice them all, while the Carlion makes his villain speech. As soon as they get out of those nets, one of them are attacked, and it is Preachy Girl! Good. I don't think I could have tolerated her for much longer. We don't get to see much of the creature, but it is a good build-up, with sound effects and visuals. We then cut to a scene between Raffaella and Deucalion, in which he tries to make up for what happened earlier by saying that he forgives her. He's the villain, people, calm down. He then asks her that she carries his seed, and she tries to play along because, well, he's kind of crazy, as we see when he says that there are those who conspire against him, which we never see any evidence of. Meanwhile, Theo is getting high on the natural gases that seep up through the cave system. That's a great idea! Getting high would make it so much easier to get through these movies. Surprising to absolutely no one, this causes him to hallucinate and he sees his girlfriend. His illusions are interrupted by Mona bashing a rock against a wall as a method of calling the others to her, and we soon get a scene where they all start to gather into a group. Anyway, Raffaella is being escorted to the Carlion's chamber when she makes a break for it. She professes her hate for him and she allows herself to fall into the labyrinth, breaking her neck as she lands. The end. Nah, I'm kidding. They find what's left of Preacher Girl and run into Tyro and his friend, who tell them their plan of slaying the Minotaur. We then get a scene that wasn't actually necessary, but it still adds to the movie as the Carlion tries to reason with his god and is treated to nothing but silence. Like most religious leaders. Back with the Scooby Gang, they're about to ambush the Minotaur, but runs into Raffaella instead. They naturally don't trust her and Bitchy Girl starts to rant, but is interrupted by the Minotaur, who kills her. Are we sure the Minotaur isn't the hero? They find Didi, wake her up and then they start traveling towards the exit. However, the handmaiden who is supposed to let them out is stopped by the Carlion and we get another sign that he's insane. This of course means they can't get out and in the desperation they start to slam the door, getting the Minotaur's attention. And now we finally get to see the Minotaur and it's a hairless giant bull with an odd mouth. Huh. I suppose it was easier to make it work for a horror movie than the classic look, but still. Tyro's friend dies, in a scene where we totally can't see the wires. They get separated and we get some struggle between Don and Theo, but Mona tries to tell him not to fight, while Didi and Tyro bond with each other. We then get to see someone who has survived inside the labyrinth. He's a bit on the crazy side, but he has a safe spot as well as a map. They then have some banter and we get more evidence that the Minotaur is not a god. Then we get some bonding between Didi and Tyro so that we will care when they die later. Oh, it's obvious. Then we get even more of the Carlion acting insane and swearing that he'll get Raffaella back. Back with Theo and company, they kinda start to realize that he's Coco for Cocoa Puffs. They then attract the Minotaur with their shouting. The Carlion meanwhile tries to save his sister, but instead attracts the Minotaur, which naturally comes running, and he boldly leaves his guard behind. Theo tries to get Turok to tell him where his girlfriend is, and he finds her amulet. After which Turok tells him where he can find her. We then get some final bonding between Tyro and Didi before she's killed off.
Fatality.
We then get the payoff for all the hallucinations Theo has suffered throughout the movie.
No.
He has himself a good cry and then completely forgets all about her. He runs for the rest of the group, but before he can reach them, Danu sacrifices himself to guarantee their safety, in a rather well done scene, and then... Plot point! If you hadn't guessed that they would use the gas to kill the Minotaur, then you're an idiot. We then see the Carlion going insane, and he even tells Theo to be on his guard. Raffaella then shows up to give Theo some exposition we already knew about to get him to fight. They track down the source of the gas and the Minotaur finds them, but Tyro, now that his character development is over, shows up to save them and he dies in the process. Theo leads Raffaella to safety and goes back so that he can spring his trap into motion. However, the pendant gets stuck on the Minotaur's horn. A stream of gas shoots out and the Minotaur prepares to retreat, but Theo jumps onto it and gets the pendant. He then runs back to the source with the Minotaur chasing him, culminating in him igniting the gas and jumping into the water. Somehow he can unroute both an explosion and the Minotaur. I'm afraid we're going to have to run some doping tests. The explosion incinerates the Minotaur, knocks the Carlion to the ground and wrecks the palace, causing an ornament to fall on him. The Minotaur somehow survives and Theo has to kill it, with one of its broken off horns. And somehow the Minotaur becomes smaller in the next shot. They find Mona with Turok and they make their escape. They exit the labyrinth and come across the Carlion, who tries one last time to bond with his sister, but she smothers him. It's strange because Theo's enemy was the Minotaur and it was an evil beast. But the Carlion's insanity makes him so much more sympathetic, and Raffaella has no character outside of plot convenience, that we actually end up sympathizing more with him than with her. It also helps that he's played by Tony Todd. They have a speech and then we end on them sitting on the stairs outside hearing the narration of an aged mourner. The end. This movie is surprisingly good. I'm completely serious. In an age where everything is either remakes or simply awful, this movie takes the old myth and spins it in a new direction with some good characters and developments. Yes, some of the characters were really annoying. The Don and Mona relationship was never really that interesting, and Raffaella had no actual character. But Tony Todd did an excellent job, Tom Hardy as Theo was fine, and I actually felt that the Tyro-Didi relationship was pulled off well. The setting isn't unique, but it's not commonplace either. The Minotaur was CG during the running scenes, but it also made use of practical effects when they could, which in modern horror movies is nearly non-existent. Despite its flaws, I still say you should check it out. It's a solid movie for a Saturday night with some friends. I'll finish off the fantasy box with Sword and the Sorcerer, but before that I want to take some time highlighting a quite good and overlooked movie. This is all kinds of awesome. I'm Richard Eriksson and I'll see you soon.